Good afternoon and welcome to Just Mental Talk. This afternoon we have Clare with us. Clare, a big warm welcome to you on Just Mental Talk, the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us on.
No, absolute pleasure. So Clare, tell us a bit about your story and your journey. When and where did it begin, or how did it begin, or what happened? Or
My journey, I recognise that it happened maybe 3-4 years ago. Obviously I had a journey before that. But I feel that my mental health deteriorated about 3-4 years ago, and that was the beginning of my journey as I see it. And was just not in a great place within myself. Didn't have a good sort of relationship with myself. Give to everyone else, poured into everyone else, and was just very tired. Didn't know who I was. And I ended up struggling. Struggling to fulfill my role as maybe a mummy. Was working at the time as well. Twin daughters who were 12 at the time. Both have their own needs, and things just got a lot for myself. And I went to the doctors for some support and was sent for an ADHD referral. And that sort of started my journey within mental health services. And
but when you say struggling, what did that struggling look like? What was it a case of not being able to function on a daily basis? When you say struggle, what did struggling actually look like?
Relationships. I was in a relationship at the time, and I just wasn't finding happiness unless I was pouring into someone else to make them happy. But it wasn't making me happy. And then I was starting to struggle in regards to work. Things like that. So I think that's maybe why the GP at the time thought, ADHD, and these questions were sort of asked about like childhood, how school was, things like that. And I do agree, with that referral at the time. It made sense. But went along for the appointment and had an assessment done, and there was different parts to that assessment. There was the relationship, so I got someone to come along with me to sort of give a look of like how things were at that present time. And then I think I brought like school reports and stuff, that I'd had from how things were when I was at school. And I think then I was just sent on for a wee bit, and the difficulties were still there, low mood, no enjoyment in anything, just to me there were small things at that time, and I just thought, right, I'll go along to these appointments and things will get better. And they weren't. Life was just getting more difficult. And then I think I think when I look back now, I wasn't aware that I was being assessed.
Okay.
These appointments were obviously building a bigger picture within the mental health service, but I wasn't aware that that's what was happening.
Okay.
And then there was just other things then mentioned in regards to, other diagnoses. Life was still hard. There was things going on at home in regards to medical needs with one of my children, and the weight was just piling on my shoulders, and I was just trying to fulfill roles as a mother, still showing up for work, being a girlfriend at the time, and I couldn't do it. Things were just breaking down day by day, and I can remember just like taking the girls to school, coming home meeting their basic needs, as what way I look at it now, as a parent, to sort of look back and think to myself, they were looked after. I wasn't feeling, as a parent, but to me it just wasn't the way that I wanted things to be. I can remember describing it to a CPN at the time of like driving past a local park and seeing a parent going in with their child and looking at her going, I wish I could do that. I wish I felt happy doing those things, but I wasn't feeling those happy feelings that I should have been feeling. So I knew that something was off, and I just kept going to these appointments thinking every time, this appointment, that I'm going to be fixed. Like, I'm going to go to this appointment, someone's going to fix me. But they didn't.
Did you feel you were broke?
Yeah. And I didn't know how I was gonna be fixed. I didn't have the tools. I didn't know who I was or what tools I needed. And like I say, whenever I was going to those appointments, I was adamant that someone else had the power to fix me. I didn't. And I was like, right, I'm gonna, like I said, like, I'm gonna go to this appointment. Today is gonna be the day I'm gonna get better. But no one else had that power. No one had those answers, And you were going to them appointments, then you were coming out and you were like, maybe coming out with a new medication or, a new contact. But I wasn't fixed, And I can remember walking up the street with the girls and coming home and being behind my bedroom door, like closing that door as if like, right, they're looked after, and sitting behind that door, like just thinking to myself, I wish someone else could look after them. I can't do this. And I think one day I was out and I was like, I had enough. And I think a feeling with myself that I can always think back to at those times when I did feel broke, or I didn't know what, I didn't see a future. I didn't know what things looked like. I didn't have goals. And it was fear. It was
fear of
like not being better, not getting rid of how I was feeling.
Now you mentioned your journey. Well, part of your journey started sort of 3-4 years ago, but there was a journey before that. What was the journey before that?
Before that, I just felt like I was always a confident, outgoing person. Loud. Still am very loud. Still am very loud. Just friendly. I would have talked to anyone.
And then was there a point in your life where you actually can look back now and say, that's where things changed?
No.
No.
This is the thing. I think the things were maybe happening at that time where I don't recognise it as part of my journey, because I think that to me, my journey only began when things were really bad. That's how and I know that everyone's journeys are completely different, and that meeting my journey, people might listen to or hear and think that's not that bad. But I think that that's what we as human beings need to realise, that people's journeys are different. People carry things different. The weight of something might be completely different based on what they have had before those things. So to me, when I look back, I just seen this happy person, whatever. But now that I have done work and I'm further along on my journey, I look back and be like, oh, this is why this happened. This is why I behave this way. Just relationships were always a struggle for me.
Okay.
But I didn't know. And it was only through like the ADHD sort of path I was like, oh, maybe that's just because within relationships, people like to like be calm and spend time together. I like that, but I also don't like to sit still. I want to be on the go. I want to run away from my thoughts. Some may say.
How bad were your thoughts?
At what time?
At any time?
My thoughts frightened me.
Did you contemplate suicide?
Yeah, I did.
Did you try?
Yeah.
What stopped you? Or what did you do? What stopped you?
What stopped me was that I had taken tablets at the time. And to me, I think it was more a cry for help. To be honest, I don't think that I wanted to end my life.
Okay.
I just don't think that I wanted my life to continue the way that it was. And I think whenever, obviously I'll speak about like my job role and stuff, and I think through doing training in regards to like suicide and things like that, I think being comfortable in asking those questions makes a big difference. And I think that through doing that training and stuff, that I realised that that's how I can answer that question. I didn't want my life to end. I just didn't want it to continue the way that it was.
So you talk about your thoughts got very dark and very, you were scared of your thoughts. What were those thoughts that instilled you with fear?
But you know what's interesting? Sorry, Carl.
No, work away.
So that attempt was a long time before that I say things got
right.
hard.
Okay.
So that's what I mean now, looking at it differently.
Which is why I was asking you about your journey.
Yeah.
Previous,
So
what you said, 3-4 years.
That previous bit never seemed difficult. I think I was more in a survival mode. I would have been in an abusive relationship. 10 years. Was in this relationship, and my children were my everything. That was my purpose. That was, if they were looked after, I was fine. If their needs were met, whatever. So to me, that time, I was just surviving. I didn't see that as a bad time. That was just my life.
Okay. But that's I mean, to accept at that time that was your life, you shouldn't have to. I mean, but that's where you were in your own headspace. I mean, in a relationship which is abusive, and we're all about encouraging women to speak up. What stops you from speaking up when you're in that situation, Claire? Why do women not speak up more, do you think?
I think it's very important for people to take that thing of like to speak up, or you should have said something, or you should have, because I can remember being in that relationship, not telling anyone, portraying that everything was absolutely fine. I was happy hiding and making sure that no one looked at him in a different light, because then that would have kept me okay. And I can remember like after it, like people who I had childhood friends who I'd grew up with who knew, like I'd say it, me being loud, that personality, and probably came across as someone who wouldn't have taken any shit.
Yeah.
Excuse the language.
No.
But and I can remember being honest then about whenever it had ended and saying what had happened, and one person saying to me, What do you mean? What do you mean? Like, it's not, you would never have, but I did, because that's the life that I had been living. That's what I had been given. That's what I accepted. And I think that we look at people and think that we have a right to,
judge
100%. Like we don't. We don't. But we also. Right. We don't know their story. Like I said, we don't know what they have dealt with before that. We don't know what has led to these people thinking or feeling that this is what I am worth. This is, and Carl, don't get me wrong. Like, I know that I said that it was that relationship, but I think that it's also very important for me to say that I played a part in that. I accepted that relationship. Do you know, I'm not saying that I deserve that.
No, far from it.
No.
Nobody deserves that.
No.
Absolutely no one deserves that. But I find it hard to accept that you feel you played a part in that.
But I did.
But you didn't make that person abuse you.
No, that's not what I mean. I totally don't agree. I agree. I don't deserve to be treated like that. I don't think anybody does.
No.
What I mean is I didn't create boundaries. I didn't know my worth. I thought that based on I didn't have a great relationship with my daddy growing up, so I didn't have a lot to like base it off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I didn't have that role model or like male figure to be like, right, this is what a good relationship looks like. So to me, I just wanted someone to want me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted loved. So the bare minimum was great. Like you know. So I think that that's what I accept my part in that relationship at the time because that's where I was.
Okay.
Would I accept that now? No.
Okay.
So I just know that my journey has moved along. I have grew as a person, and I think why I'm saying that is because it's important for a person to know who they are. Mm-hmm. And work out about themselves and their journey and that to then bring into relationships because I wasn't the best version of myself then. I didn't know. You heard me at the start there speaking about giving out to other people to make myself happy. I didn't know that you could make yourself happy without being loved by someone else.
So just I'll rewind a wee bit and go forward a wee bit. So we talked about there in your initial stages, which was when your relationship and the suicide attempt, which was more cry for help, as you've said, and then fast forward a wee bit, then these thoughts that were dark and that were scary for you. What was scary about them? What made them scary? What were those thoughts?
I think what made them scary was that I had something to live for. But like I said, I didn't want my life to continue the way that it was. Those thoughts were to kill myself. Mm-hmm.
But you didn't try it this time around?
Early on, I did.
Okay.
Later on, whenever obviously I started with services and stuff, I didn't because I think that I had already started to grow as a person and see that there was support and help out there. I do think that I needed to push for it. Do you know what? It's not handed to you on a plate. And I think that it's important to recognise that we do need to look and see what's out there. Not everything is for everyone, you know. But I think at that time it sort of gave me a bit of a purpose to know that I could help myself. You know, looking for those services, ringing around places, sort of trying to see where I fit it.
And when you have suicidal thoughts, and in particular when you have children, where does the children sit in that thought process?
They didn't. They didn't because I.
So what did you think? How do you think they would react then?
Now?
No, back then. Did you not think about their reaction? Or did you believe you were a burden on them and they would be better off without you?
Yeah, I thought they'd be better off. It's actually making me emotional now thinking about it. At that time, yeah, I thought they'd be better off. Someone else could do the job better than me. And I don't know if that's where it comes from now of being such a independent parent. Where I'm like, no, I'll do everything myself. But but it's sort of the thing of they're better off without me. Do you know, I wasn't happy. I couldn't get happiness within that role of being a parent. So it was like, right, just let someone else do the job. And I think then waking up the next day and going to the doctors and sort of admitting what I had attempted was maybe a wake up that I didn't get the attention that I was seeking. It was it was within me that I had to do that for them, because there's that realization that they're not better off without. No one knows my girls like I know my girls. No one can do that job better. And if I give my, you know, and I know this is maybe really hot, like not intent. It's very like if I turned that question around to my children and I said, "Would you want someone else to look after you?" Your children's never gonna, you know. I think we as parents need to realize that they carry stuff just like we do, and they want to help us and be there to support us just as much as we support and be there for them. So I think that's why I be so open and honest. Not too much.
No.
You know, they don't need to know everything.
There's boundaries.
Yeah, there's boundaries. They don't need to know everything. But I think that I found on earlier that I was better to be honest in a way that children aren't stupid. You know, we have to give them credit. They're not silly. And they would have noticed my wee warning signs, as I say. Where I would facilitate RAP within the Belfast Recovery College.
RAP, it stands for
Wellness Recovery Action Plan.
Okay.
So basically, it's like a 3-part like plan, and so you'll look at things so your early warning signs. To me, them early warning signs, like I was saying, there would be my dishes starting to pile up.
Okay.
Some people that might be just, you know, she's being lazy or like whatever. But to me, if my dishes sit there for a couple of days, it's like, right, something's off here.
And the difference in that, Clare, too, is based on experience, I suppose, it's not being lazy, it's not having the motivation.
Yeah.
And that's two different things.
Yeah.
Two different things.
Completely. But why I'm saying that in regards to children, they live in that house. They see those things, you know, and I mightn't realise till like day 4 that my dishes are still sitting there. But them children will pick up on them wee things, or just you pick up on other people's change in behaviour. Your children's going to pick up on when we seems to be a bit off today, or you know. Yeah. So I always felt that it was important to be honest with them.
In terms of you mentioned children, when you're in an abusive relationship too, you think that might have been something to do with your childhood. How important is the environment in which a child is brought up in relation to their long-term well-being?
I think it's very important. You know, now, I think one of my fears, and it has been from like I had received my diagnosis and stuff. It's sort of that thing of like, am I going to pass that? Am I going to pass that on? You know, what chance do they stand when they have the genetics behind it there? But then they also had that relationship, you know, that time where they lived within that environment of that abusive relationship. But the thing is, that was 10 years. I have all these years after that I can try and rewire or show them that they're still young. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because the fear is if child grows up in an abusive home,
Mm-hmm.
they may not witness them, but they certainly hear it. But as
Yep.
you say, kids are not stupid.
No.
They know exactly what's going on,
Yeah.
and you don't want them thinking then that that's normal.
Yeah.
To go into abusive relationship,
Definitely
that's a normal
not.
thing.
Definitely
So
not.
no, I get what you're saying in terms of trying to rewire the brains and say, no, this is not normal.
This is not normal.
This is wrong.
Yeah. So, but my thing was, Carl, there's these 10 years that I was in this relationship and that I accept that. Then I have these years now that I'm out of this, and I do the work on myself and start to show the girls that this is what it's like to show up for yourself. This is what it's like to put boundaries in place. This is what real love is. Do you know, yes, that mightn't have been a great start for their early development and whatever, but did I beat myself up over that relationship, or did I try and change myself to then pour that into the girls? Do you know, I think that it's important that I just have to take the weight off my shoulders and accept that I can't change that. I only have control over the present, what I choose to do now, and how we carry that in till going forward.
Okay. So you mentioned a couple of times about diagnosis, and I know you had this assessment for ADHD. So you were diagnosed with ADHD?
I was.
Any other diagnosis?
Yeah. I then received a diagnosis. They were querying EUPD.
AUPD is also the old name, or for some doctors still use it for borderline personality disorder as well. So EUPD is emotionally unstable personality disorder,
It is.
and BPD is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had queried that, but they were also querying bipolar.
Okay.
And I think at the time I was just going to accept anything, because I just wanted an explanation of why I was feeling how I was feeling, or still holding on to that thing of like, when I get a diagnosis, they're going to give me medication and it's going to fix me, or I'm going to get like a chance at something that is going to change me. And like, it's that thing of like, fix me. Like, you just think that someone else has this power to fix or in control of how your life is going to pan out. And I think you're still within that assessment. You know, I didn't, like I say, at those times, I didn't think that that's what it was. I was just thinking, showing up to appointments, speaking about how life is, and little did I know that that was them just picking out like how things were, what it was looking like, how it was affecting relationships, and I think at that time the psychiatrist had queried more so the emotional unstable personality disorder, and I was then referred to another team. Built myself up that I was going to this appointment, going to get this diagnosis, and I was then going to do, like, I think you do like 8 weeks of like within a small group of like a therapy, and then further on then you would do like 18 months.
Well, this is the personality and self-harm team. Yeah.
And I can remember going to this appointment again and thinking, right, this is the day. This is the day. And I went in and sat down at the appointment, and then the psychiatrist had obviously been reading over my notes, and he was like, no, I don't think that you have emotional unstable personality disorder. I think you have bipolar. So that's when that one was added into the mix then, and that hope that my life was going to change and that my chance, I felt that day was taken away from me. That chance of like, now I understand myself, someone's going to understand me, I'm going to have the chance to change, like this chance of like therapy. Because as much as I was staying on like medication and wanting that, I also knew, I think deep inside, that medication wasn't going to change who I was as a person. And I was aware that there was things that I needed to work on. And I can remember that day, it was sort of like, I always laugh about it. It was like, do you know when then stand up sort of, you challenge someone, but they come back at you straight away, and it's like, okay, I'll just sit down and accept that this is where I'm at. So I was then,
But you didn't accept it.
I didn't. I challenged and said that I didn't want to always take medication. I'm not against medication. I think that I have got to where I am because medication was my crutch at the time. And I don't think that I would have been stable to take what I did out of my therapy and the appointments and stuff that I had if I hadn't have been taking the medication. But I challenged and I sort of asked that regardless of the diagnosis, could I please have the chance to go to some sessions for some sort of therapy? And I was then referred for psychotherapy. And it was only in those, I think, 8 sessions of psychotherapy that they realised that my struggles and my difficulties were actually in line with borderline personality disorder, EUPD. So then I was referred back to that team.
And in the midst of this, I mean, you're wanting to get better and be on that recovery journey. But in the midst of this, you're being literally from pillar to post because one doctor's saying, we think you have this. The other doctor's saying, well, actually, no, I think that's wrong. I think you have this. That must add a huge amount of confusion already in what is a confused mind.
Because of these people, to me, because at that time I had this thing of like, right, they're up here. They know, like they're educated. They know me. But I didn't realise that I knew me because, like I said, I didn't have the self-confidence or the awareness that I could speak and advocate for myself. I did, asking, for those sessions. But I thought that they know better. They know me. They can help me. They're in control. Everything. I was just allowing everyone else to. So no matter what people said, and it was only through then my journey within mental health services of like my CPN at the time.
CPN back then, community psychiatric nurse, which no longer exists now. I think they're called key workers. Yeah.
So at the time, I used to go, I think, every week at the time. And we would have met, and that's whenever my relationship with myself started to change.
Okay.
And she could obviously see something in me that I couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we need to realise that within everyone, within mental health, that we don't see the good in ourselves whenever we're going through these periods. And like we spoke about there earlier on about like whenever you're thinking that you're not worth the time on the earth, people are better off without you. You don't see the good things that you bring into people's lives. And she would have just given me those wee reminders. And when someone's giving you those, you start to work on them, or you start to believe them, or it mightn't only be her. There might have been other friends, and it starts to set that fire within you that you're like, right, they see this. How do I? So I think then going to those appointments, I think at that time, obviously, you have your trial of your different medications. Some things worked, some things didn't. And I think actually, whenever I had been referred for the psychotherapy, I was started on a medication called lithium.
Yep.
the gold standard. And I think there was a lot of fear around starting that, because you hear side effects, how often you need to get bloods done, whatever. But I think at that point I realised that I was already living in fear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my thoughts were controlling me, and that fear was already there. So it was sort of like, I need to take this opportunity.
At that point, had you received a definite diagnosis before you went on that medication? No. Okay.
I don't think that I've ever, still to this day,
Wow.
received a definite diagnosis. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's wrote down.
Which is what?
At the minute,
Yeah.
ADHD, EUPD, and bipolar.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
And bipolar, that's a chemical imbalance in the brain, isn't that right?
Yeah.
And with having bipolar 2, Claire, manic episodes.
This is the thing.
Okay.
It was more at the time hypomanic.
Okay. What's that mean now?
So hypomanic's more like that sort of like elated, you know, but not to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It mightn't last. That episode mightn't last as long. But then I think it was also important. Now that I look back, this is where I think that it's so important that someone knows who they are, or people know what their family members are like. Because when people are assessing you within mental health services, they are only seeing you for that period of time. Do you know, it was only through people assessing me, like my psychiatrist stuff, assessing me at that time, that she was like, but you are loud. You are, when, like, whenever you are talking, you talk fast. Do you know, so could that just be my baseline? Is that my personality, or is this, do you know, is this me whenever I'm hypomanic? But as I say, started on the lithium, and it did work. It did help.
In what way?
Those rash, like, decisions, those, like, when I got something in my head, I was doing it. It didn't. There was no thought about how that, like, really came back at me.
So you were making decisions and not thinking about the consequences?
No. And I think that was a scary thing too, because in those times, feelings and emotions took over, and I acted on those. And then it was only afterwards you're like, wow, like, that could have led to, like, loss of life, me being arrested, like, losing my license, like, so many different things that you don't care about at that time. It's not that you don't care. These feelings and emotions they're in control.
So did the lithium then sort of suppress that thought process then?
It slowed it. I feel that it slowed things. It took away those racing thoughts, and, you know, that those highs and lows. And I think that's where it was difficult for me with because with the UPD, it's they sort of say it's like up and down, like, constantly. But with the bipolar, it's sort of like there's those episodes of the highs and lows. And it was hard for me, because it was like, which one am I? Where do I fit? But then I got the opportunity then to go with the personality and self-harm team, and started my therapy while still on the lithium. Was stable. I think they sort of say that you need that period of time before you start this, because you're going to be going through things that sort of bring up feelings and emotions, and you're working through and you're learning about yourself.
And What does stable look like? Or what did stable look like?
This is why I'm saying it's important for you to know who, like, what's your normal.
But but looking back on it now, what can you identify as what was your stable?
I don't think I was. Like, I don't think that I had it.
Okay.
You know, and I think it's difficult too, because now that I look back, not on medication, therapy, you know, completed, I look back and I'm like, is that ADHD, Claire? You know, and so much of those things like overlap.
Yeah.
Where you're like, is that just me? But then you add in those things of like those relationships, those things where you're feeling those imbalances within yourself, that it mightn't be a diagnosis. It might just be that I'm going through something that I need to work out, or that I need to work on within myself. But I will say, I don't think that I would be where I am if it wasn't for lithium, and if it wasn't for the therapy that I had received. So to me, I know that I say that at that time I wanted those diagnoses, I wanted that medication, I wanted to be fixed. Now I look at it and I be like, I don't care about the diagnosis. It was that help that came with that got me to where I am now. That I don't disagree with parts of that. Those, it's more the behaviours and the struggles within that. I don't say that's who I am. I don't identify as a diagnosis.
Yeah.
I accept that's where I was at. That's the help that I needed, and with that help, this is where I am now.
And where are you now?
I'm the happiest that I've ever been. I'm the happiest that I've ever been. I am an amazing mummy.
How's your relationship with the girls?
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, I hope they take that. Yeah, no, I think that's maybe whenever I look back, and I know that I spoke about earlier on about things being difficult in regards to medical for my daughter, and I think with that pressure added on to something that was already there, that's when things started to break down. So now that I've worked on me, I'm able. I remember saying to the girls one day, or to one of the girls, she was struggling with something, or wouldn't speak to me about something hard, and I can remember like saying to her, but I go to my appointment every week to drop things off at that episode, offload this stuff, that I can come home and take on your stuff, so you don't have to carry it alone. I'm going there to drop my things off. So I think now we have a very open relationship. I think that I realised that it was important for me to be honest with them about mental health, about where I'm at, what I'm finding difficult.
And what about friends and family? Have you lost any through your journey because they just didn't accept where you were, and that there was a mental health issue, or have they been? There's probably some have been supportive, but what impact did it have on your friendship relationships with family and friends?
I think I was very lucky.
Okay.
To have the friends that I had. What I do laugh about now is that I think you have those friends that will call you out and say, no, I don't agree with that, you shouldn't be doing that, blah blah blah. And I think that they're the friends at that time that I didn't want to talk to.
Okay.
Because I was like, why is she telling me, like, why is she telling me these things that I didn't want to hear? Even though I knew that that's what I needed to do, I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to speak to the friends who not enabled, but weren't as firm.
Yeah.
But I think I was very lucky. I joined a gym 10 years ago, and through joining that gym, I met one of my best friends, and he's had such impact on my life and been such a support that I started to take out those wee tools. Remember, like I said earlier on, I didn't know. I started to take those things that I knew that, right, this works for me, this works for me.
When you say tools, like what?
Going to the water would have been a big one for me, Carl. And being by, like, the sea.
Okay.
The noise, just looking out, like, to me, that helped me. But I can remember going through that period at that time and people being afraid of me going there.
In case you would do something.
I think that's obviously what
life,
they thought. Don't get me wrong. That was probably where I went to when my thoughts were. But I think that's important that you know what works for you.
Yeah.
So although that might have looked like I was going there to end my life, that was me keeping me here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what helped me. So I think the water, the gym, showing up for myself and going to those appointments were part of my toolbox. But then I think it's also important that we realise that those things change as well now. I don't go to the water as much as what I did then because I don't need to. I still love the water. But now if I do find myself going there, it's like, right, okay, what else do I need to work on here? Because that's obviously, that's me going somewhere that I know that I need to use. So I think just knowing that those were my tools and that they change and that your people can change too. When we speak about RAP, you have your different parts and you have your crisis plan and things like that, and you have like your supporters within there where you might end up at hospital in crisis, and this is who I want to make these decisions. But through this journey, those people can change, so it's always important to realise that things change. You change.
And the Clare that you are now, you say is more confident, you have good self-esteem, you're a great mother, great friend, but you're also a peer support worker in the Belfast Trust, and you work up in the acute mental health inpatient centre at the City Hospital.
I do.
Why did you want to, or did it fall in your lap, or what happened? Why did you want to be a peer support worker?
No, I think at the time, obviously, whenever I was using services and I heard of the Belfast Recovery College, and I wanted to meet people that understood me and were just like me. They wanted to feel that I wasn't on my own. And I can remember like signing up to some of the courses and stuff and coming along and feeling that I wasn't on my own. And then obviously within time of like medication, being stable, I was like, right, okay, I feel like I wanna get back out to work maybe. There was that sort of fear, am I ready? Will I ever be ready? Because I think at the time whenever I was given them diagnosis, it's important to say that I thought that was my life. I thought that this diagnosis was who I was. I was going to be on medication for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to work again. That was me. That's who I was. And that's where I just thought that that's what my life was going to be. And I came along to the Belfast Recovery College and done some of them groups, started to build on my self-worth, self-esteem, and then I realised, I wonder, should I do a bit of voluntary? and I done some voluntary work within the Belfast Recovery College. And I think I heard that the jobs were coming up, and I was like, well, why not? I'd always been in like a current role. Worked in childcare. Then I was a healthcare assistant in the Belfast Trust. So there was always that current role. So I was like, right, okay, maybe I could. Had working in mental health ever been in my path for life? No, it was never a goal. It was never something that I thought that I'd wanted to do. And I went for 2 of the posts, one in community and one in the inpatient, and I chose to go into the acute mental health inpatient centre, and it was one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
And do you think with your experience, Claire, it's because of your experience that you've been through that you can relate and offer more to others who are going through something similar?
I don't see it as like I have more to offer someone. I genuinely don't. Do I feel like I go to work every day or when I'm in there? No. The feeling that I get from getting in there, I can't explain. I can't. But I don't see that I have this experience and that I have this to offer. I just go in there and be me, Carl, and speak about my experiences and relate to people. Like I say at the start, everyone's journey is completely different. Can I relate to everyone that's in there? No. Maybe not within the full aspect in their mental health, but maybe to some parts of their story. Do you know, I think we need to realise, or at least I realise, that we are human.
Mm-hmm.
We all want the same sort of connection is a big important thing, and just having someone who will listen to when you are ready to speak. You know, you mightn't want to talk right away, but knowing that there's someone there that will listen, I think is a great start.
And you talk about connection. I think you're right that a connection is so important. And when you connect with someone, you're more open to having a conversation. But that connect, and I agree with you as well that all of our journeys are unique to ourselves.
Completely.
But at some point in our journey, we do have crossovers. We do come together, and there's parts of our stories and journeys where we do crossover. But having that connection because of the experience, I think, just creates a different
level
conversation completely.
Yeah, there's that professional thing is taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to me, it may be different to others, but when you're speaking to someone who sort of gets it, understands, has lived experience, it's like that judgment isn't there, and it shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
But we always do fear that judgment, and when someone has that lived experience, it takes away that thing of like, they can't judge me, or they get it, or maybe they can signpost me or like tell me something that helped them.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important that like you realise that you're not on your own. When you have someone who is there who has lived experience, you realise that you're not on your own. Someone else has been through this. Someone else has got out and this far along their journey. Yes, I am this far. Do I have times where I slip up or have struggles? Yes, we're human. We all do. But it's about using those tools or those connections. I know that it might sound silly.
No, it doesn't.
I hope that it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Because, and I laugh too, because like at the start of my journey within mental health services, like where they talk about like self-care, and you're like, oh my God, like, give over. Like, and that's genuinely how I felt, because at that time I was like, you tell me to get one more bath. Like, stop. Like, I do not, like, that is not going to fix my problems. But as I get, as you start to implement those wee things, it's like, they know what they're talking about. Like, sleep is so important, exercise, food, like, those things that you're like, I don't care about those things, but they are important things. So I think just knowing that someone has tried those things and can say, look, it's not a load of nonsense. They do work, or this is out here. It might work for you. It didn't necessarily work for me, because there is those things. Like, I know that hearing my story, the parts of it probably sound like she has it all figured out, or it might sound positive, but not everyone's story is like that, Carl.
No. And you talk about journey. You've mentioned the word journey numerous times in our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think everyone's journey is never ending? In terms of those who have been through a particular mental health crisis, do you think that journey then is never ending?
I think everyone, whether it's mental health or not,
Mm-hmm.
it is never ending.
Okay.
Until it ends, Carl.
So do you think? So okay, let me phrase that a different way then.
Yeah.
Do you think you can get better?
Yeah.
Do you think you can be healed?
I think life can get better. I think you can heal those wounds. They stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Those, I think, if I was looking at that in regards to, I'm a very visual person.
All right, go ahead.
So if someone says to me, can you heal those wounds? Over that period of time where is your journey,
Mm-hmm.
you're like plastering over maybe connection, someone listening to your story, speaking about certain things, just different things where you think that you're adding a layer over those things. So it mightn't be fully healed, but it's getting better.
Okay.
It doesn't take away the things of someone's journey or what has happened to them, what their journey has looked like previously. You're not going to take that away. You can't take that away from someone, but you can help them manage better. At that time that I think that things were going to get better, no. And that's what I say within my work. I once sat thinking that things weren't going to get better. I once contemplated taking my own life. I didn't see a future. I didn't know what life would look like. I didn't know what would make Clare happy. But through that process, this journey, you learn about yourself. I have become more confident. I can set boundaries. Those things just help along the way within that. And this is where I am today. But for no reason do I think that things might not change.
Yeah.
It's never a way. You don't know what would happen. I don't know what could happen in my life that I could take a step back, but I am in a better position to deal with that.
And recognise it.
I'm more aware. I know what worked in the past. I know what didn't work. It's being aware of who you are, what worked, what didn't work, what medication worked before. Those things of wanting to get back on your path. We all have detours in our path, bumps in the road, and they may sound silly, but that's life. But again, I never want to take away the fact that someone's journey is completely different to mine, how much more difficult it may be for them to speak about it, address it, ask for help. It's not an easy thing to ask for.
I like to try and end our conversations with a bit of hope, and a bit of advice, if we can. First of all, and there's two elements of this, I want to ask you for a bit of hope, and what would you say? What would you say to someone now who's in an abusive relationship, male or female, actually, because we're hearing now more males are in abusive relationships. So male or female, if someone's sitting there in an abusive relationship, and I think it's important too, people think abuse and they think physical abuse, but it can be emotional abuse, financial abuse, control, coercive abuse. What would you say to someone now who is sitting at home, hearing your story, but going through some of the things that you've been through in terms of abusive relationship? What would you say to them, Clare? What would you say to the Clare 10 years ago?
Get out. But I also am aware of the fear in that, the possibilities of what may happen. So I think whenever, if it had been me, that they have those connections, somewhere safe to go, a plan, like to be safe, because I think you always and I did, Carl. I fell back in. I got out and then went back because I didn't know any different. So I think it, like, just having your safety connections and things like that is so important. And not to be afraid of asking for help. Because there is help out there. And that, I think at that time, if I was looking back, I would tell her that things can get better.
And you can survive without an abusive partner.
Yeah.
You can survive.
You can survive without a relationship with the man. Because at that time, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought that that's the only way that I was going to be happy.
And to someone who's sitting at home, crisis, feeling suicidal, feeling those scary, dark thoughts that you and I have both experienced, what would you say to them? What would you say to the Clare that did take the tablets, that did contemplate suicide, and did face those scary thoughts? What would you say to that?
That there is hope. It may come in tiny glimmers, but they build up. And not that don't give up. Because you are, like, I say that to people, and I know at that time we don't feel like we're worth it. But you are worth the hard work, and you're worth the fight, and things will get better.
I think the other thing you mentioned too at the very start, Clare, too, is that you, no matter, and irrespective of how bad you are, or some of the walls you get faced with in your journey, the important thing in all this is that you've got to be your own best advocate.
Yeah.
As you said, sometimes you've got to fight for what you know you need or you deserve. And the unfortunate thing is the way this, the NH is now, and it doesn't matter. It's important that you've got to ask for what you believe is right.
But yes, 100%. But I also think that it's important to know, and I think that this, within my job role then as well, gives me that extra push. Not everyone can. Not everyone feels.
But for those who can't, then what hope can you give them? If you feel you can't, or you don't, as you said, you're lucky, and I've been very lucky in terms of having a great family and a great friend network. But for those who don't and those who can't advocate for themselves, what hope is there for them then?
But then that's the thing, like I'm saying about, like, my role and these other voluntary services, places where you meet these people who will advocate for you. We have peer advocates with the peer support workers, with peer support workers in the community. The thing is, at that time, it may only take one appointment that you go to, like I said, I was going and I was meeting with my CPN, she started to advocate for me, you know, through getting to know me, which then gave me the encouragement to advocate for myself, because then I was like, she sees this, then I can do that, you know. So it's just giving people the chance and maybe a bit of belief in themselves that they can. Did I feel at the very start that I could? No. Do I now? Yes. But that's the important thing, that it's a skill. To advocate for yourself is a skill. Do we all hold it? No. Can we get it? Yes. So, like, relying on those people who will take that for you, take it.
Claire, huge thank you from us here at Just Mental Talk for your conversation here this afternoon. I wish you all the very best. I hope you continue on your journey well. And thank you very much. For our listeners out there, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our various social media networks across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Or visit our website www.justmental.net. Claire, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claire.